here at the Technology Committee meeting. Welcome. Before we get started, I'd just like to say the Pennridge School Board welcomes public comment according to Policy 903. We remind everyone of the following. Public comment shall be limited to 3 minutes unless otherwise specified. Participants must be recognized by the and note their name and municipality. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer rather than to individual board members, district employees, or members of the public. The speaker may speak once during each comment period. Please note these sessions are designated for comments. To protect the confidentiality and privacy rights of all members of our community, the board encourages members of the public to direct any comments regarding particular individuals, such as students or district employees, privately to the superintendent or other appropriate administrator, or to communicate with the board privately by sending an email to psdschoolboard@pennridge.org. Questions raised and not addressed may be followed up at a later time. With that, I will open it up to public comment. Seeing none, we'll move on with the agenda. Okay, so tonight we have 2 items on our agenda. First is the presentation by Mrs. Miller on the middle school technology.
Good evening. What I'd like to present tonight is our vision of the middle school technology proposal for the district. Over the past couple of years, we've heard a lot of talk about what we've done at the high school as far as the 1-to-1 program. Last year, we talked a lot about elementary school as far as iPads and using the technology at the elementary levels. And this year, it's really time to give a good hard look at the middle schools and what they need and what they're lacking, and to see if we can bring them up to speed with the rest of the district a little bit. So currently at the middle schools, and when I speak about the middle schools, I'm really talking about all 3 of them because they're pretty much equal as far as technology. So currently at the 3 middle schools, they have multiple laptop carts. So they have a newer, quote-unquote, laptop cart, which is a Lenovo X140E, and they each have 1 cart. Some of them have it divided into 2 carts, but 30 units, and then they have 60 of laptops, HP 6470s, and they're a little bit older. They're now on their 4th year, I believe it is. Last year we did put a little bit of money, actually we did put money into the middle schools last year, where we got rid of the VDI labs, and we flipped out 2 of the labs at each of the 3 locations, and we put a little Lenovo. It's called a Tiny, I always call it the little box. It's an M900, so it's a desktop. So there's 2 traditional labs in each one of the middle schools. Then we also still have 30 of the VDIs, which were the thin client, the interface thin clients. So we still have those there as well. Then each library has between 10 and 12 VDI units. There's a tech ed lab at each library, at each middle school as well, which has, again, maybe about 15 units. And then in each classroom, the teacher has a desktop. They do not have a laptop. So we wanted to take a look to see how we could infuse some additional technology into the middle schools to help to make sure that our students at the middle school level have the same type of opportunities that now the elementary and the high school students are having. So the first thing that we looked at was the teacher device, and it was pretty much a given that we'd like to provide a laptop to the middle school teachers to keep them on par, so to speak, with the rest of the teachers throughout the district. This is the last group to be given a laptop. So we're looking at a Lenovo. It's a Yoga 460. It's very similar to what the elementary teachers were provided last year. So it's not only your laptop, but it's also a tablet, and it's a touch device. It gives them the ability to walk around the classroom. It gives them the mobility that they're looking for. We're looking to put them through a 4-year lease, as well as what we've done for the elementary and the high school teachers as well, so we can keep refreshing them to keep them current and up to date with their technology. The other thing that we're looking at for the teachers that we've heard is classroom projection. They don't want to be tethered to their laptop and their projector. They want to be able to project while they walk around. Classroom management, to be able to see what the students are doing and project it onto the screen. So we have been testing multiple devices that we want to inject into the classrooms. We've looked at something called a screen beam, which is a small, it's a small device. It's about 4 inches in size that can actually be put onto the projector itself. That is kind of meeting this need rather nicely. We're also looking at an Epson because all of our projectors pretty much throughout the district are Epsons. They have a LAN module that can be plugged into the back of the projector, again, to allow us to be able to project from the teacher's laptop so they can walk around a little bit more and become a little bit more mobile. So there are kind of 2 things that we want to do right out of the gate for the teachers themselves to update their technology. As far as for the students then, and even for the teachers, the first thing that we did was we formed a committee. We formed a middle school technology committee. And the middle school technology committee, we had some teachers on, principal representation, librarians, the tech integrators, Dr. Scheid and myself. And we met with this group back October, November of this past school year, and we started to discuss the current state of technology in the middle schools. And what we were hearing loud and clear is there's not enough devices in the middle schools to deliver content, electronic content, on a regular basis. So that message came through loud and clear from meeting number 1, meeting number 2, and the principals' meetings. So at first we sort of were going down the path of more carts within the middle school, and we were kind of told loud and clear that's really not what we're looking for. We're looking for a way to get a device in the most students' hands that we can, given the budgetary money that we have to spend. So I started looking around. One of the things that they were also that we heard at the meetings were Chromebooks. So I'm not going to lie, I'm not a big Chromebook fan. I think they have some shortcomings, Chromebooks, and there's some management issues, and we're really not a full Google district here, so I really didn't want to say we're going to go totally Chromebook. But what I was able to identify was there is a, I'll call it a light laptop out there, which is similar to a Chromebook, but has Windows 10 on it. So that we started kind of going down that road to see if that would meet the needs of the students at the middle schools. So the goal that we got from the technology committee that we met with was to increase student access to devices on a regular basis. Rather than right now, what we were hearing was, yeah, we can get technology, but we have to sign that card out, months in advance, and we don't have any continuity with our digital content with our middle schoolers. So our main goal is let's increase student access to the devices on a regular basis. So through our meetings, we were trying to figure out whether we should start with the 6th grade or the 8th grade. It was like, where can we put the devices into whose hands that it makes the most maybe sense continuity-wise. So what we talked about was, if you go with 6th grade, they're kind of coming off the high of being in the elementary schools. They have some really nice, neat technology with the iPads, and then they kind of come into the 6th grade and they're kind of like, we don't have a whole lot of devices. So through our committee and through discussions with the curriculum office and with the principals, we thought, well, let's talk about infusing some laptops into the 6th grade so that they can use the devices on a more daily basis. So what we're looking at is putting the devices not so much, we don't want to say on a one-to-one basis, but putting the devices into the language arts classrooms and leaving the devices in the language arts classrooms. Purchasing secure charging stations so that as the students come in, they'll always have the same laptop in their classroom, but it won't be their laptop, so to speak. They will not be moving it around from class to class with them, so the laptops will stay in the classroom. Getting away from the cart model where when you take those carts and you're bumping them down, from one end of the building to another end of the building, you know, it's a kind of rough and rocky ride. So this way we thought if we can keep them in a classroom, we think they'll hold up a lot better. 7th and 8th grade then, so we're looking to go that way in the 6th grade, and then the 7th and 8th graders, we obviously have the STEM program coming. So STEM 1 and STEM 2 classes are coming. Those classes will have 35 laptops dedicated to their program, so they will not be part of the gen population, but they will be assigned to the STEM programs because STEM will be taking place every period. And then there's about 15 desktops that are in the current tech ed labs that can be then utilized with STEM 1 and STEM 2 as well. What will happen then is if we infuse the laptops into the 6th grade classrooms, that will then free up the carts and the labs for the 7th and 8th graders. So in other words, this year we infuse the technology in at the 6th grade. The current technology that is in the middle schools will then kind of float up or rise up to the 7th and 8th graders. Thereby, it'll increase access for everyone throughout the school. So the device that we are proposing it's called a Lenovo N23. It's floating around up there someplace actually. So it looks very much like the 11E that the high school students are using, but it's I'll call it a much lighter laptop. Not light this way, but light in processing power, lighter in processing power. Has a Celeron processor, has dual core. It's got 128 gig SSD in it. And it's got Windows 10, which is what made me happy because, again, I wasn't really too happy with going down the Chromebook path. We're looking at approximately 200 of them per school to, again, infuse into the 6th grade wings, pretty much just into the 6th grade wings. And again, then the carts would be more readily available for the 7th and 8th graders. We're looking at keeping them in the language arts classrooms. So every student has language arts, so every 6th grader has language arts, so every 6th grader would have a computer available for language arts. They'd also have it available for reading, and then the other teachers also rotate through those same classrooms, so it's not like it's just the language arts and the reading teachers who would have access to them, but the math, the social studies, what am I missing? Math, social studies, and science teachers will also have access to them by the way that they schedule in the middle schools. We're also looking at professional development to be put in place for the beginning of the school year so the teachers can fully integrate their technology more and more into their curriculum on a daily basis. So Dr. Scheid's office has that covered or is going to look to see how we can infuse that professional development so we get the most bang for our buck on that end of it as well. We're also going to be working with the facilities department to make sure that if we put a charging station in each one of the classrooms, we want to make sure that we're not blowing circuits all over the place as well. So we're looking at carts that have like a power distribution system in them, so they don't all charge up at one time, so it kind of lightens the load a little bit. And then we'll work with facilities just to make sure that they're not all plugged in on the same circuit so we don't blow lights all over the place, because that can happen sometimes, especially in some of in South in particular. So the cost of the N23 is approximately $290 per unit. So again, it's a lighter laptop than up at the high school level because they don't need the computing power down at the middle school level as much as they do at the high school level. This computer would not do well at the one-to-one level because of some of the math programs and the science programs. It doesn't have that type of a processor or that type of memory to be able to handle what we do up at the high school level, but for the middle school it seems to be kind of the perfect device. So far we've given it to each of the 3 middle schools. We've given it to a middle school teacher, a librarian, I guess it was 2 middle school teachers and one of the librarians. They had it for a week, they kicked the tires, they logged on to everything that the students log on to. They actually gave it to their students to log on. Reaction was very positive. The kids love that it's not only a laptop, but it's also a tablet, so they can actually bend it. It's got a touch screen. So it has everything that the big computer will have when they get up to the 9th grade. Again, it's just kind of in a little lighter packaging. The charging stations that I'm looking at for purchase are about $850 a unit. It's cheaper than a cart. The carts are between $1,100 and $1,300, quite honestly. So we're looking at 18 units there. And then the teacher computer, I threw that price up there as well. The teacher computer is $1,100 per unit, and that includes their ADP and their warranty. And we would lease the actual teacher computer. I'm proposing, I do have money in the budget to cover the N23 in the technology budget, so that would be an outright purchase, just because the price is so much cheaper than, one of the teacher computers or the one-to-one computers. So we're looking at actually purchasing. So the future then, what would the future look like? If this is what we do this year, where would we move forward after this year? So I think the first thing that we would need to do then is we'd have to evaluate how the year went before we can really say what the total plan would be moving forward. We want to evaluate the performance of the device. More importantly, I think we'd want to evaluate the effectiveness of the laptop remaining in the classroom itself. Is this model working correctly, or would we have to, move things around a little bit? And we'd want to also evaluate the effect of the increased access on the curriculum, which according to the teachers, if they can get the device into the students' hands, they're saying that they'll be more effective as far as the curriculum that they can deliver. Some considerations that we do have to also evaluate into the future would be professional development. If we're going to infuse these devices in at the middle school level, we have to make sure that the teachers are comfortable with how they're delivering the curriculum to the students. And we also have to worry about technical support. We have to look for, the tech staff. We can't be overstretched. And the infrastructure to make sure that we have enough wireless access points and whatnot. We're okay for this year, but these would be considerations as we move forward, as we keep moving forward, to make sure that we're all caught up with everything as we decide how to keep moving forward. So basically, I think that's my last slide. It is. So I'll open it up to questions, please.
Yeah, I have my first question. If you get 200 per building for just the 6th grade, that's pretty much the whole class. That's one per student. But you were talking about leaving them in the language arts room. So that's two very different ideas there.
So it is leaving them in the classroom so that the student doesn't have to move from classroom to classroom with the device. So I don't want to say that it's a one-to-one. It would be left in the classroom, not moved around with the student. Does that make sense?
No.
No. Okay.
No, you just said they'll all be in the language arts classroom, so then there'll be all these extra ones in the language arts classroom.
No, so they'll be in the language arts classroom. So the 6th grade is in a wing. So there's either 6 or 8 classrooms per wing, per school. So if there's a set in each language arts classroom, they'll remain there. So they'll remain there for the language arts classes, but they'll also be used by the other teachers who come into those same classrooms.
So you're saying if the science teacher wants to use it, they have to go into the language arts classroom?
They already do that. Like, they don't have like their own room. They share classrooms. So they share classrooms at the middle school. It's not like they're just in the one classroom.
Yeah, that's correct. So it could be 5 classes out of the school day, language arts and reading, could be then a social studies class. It's not strictly language arts and reading. So there's social studies classes in there, there are science classes in there. But I guess back to the original question is, if it was literally one computer for one student, that was a topic of conversation. Is that the way we should go? And I think part of that discussion was, are they ready for that? Is that where we want to go? Are we 100% sure this is the device that we want to use? So all those questions were discussed. The final recommendation was through the technology committee. Most of the voices came from language arts and reading teachers, really from humanities and social studies, with not having access to the device with all of what we have been able to offer teachers. So that a lot of the frustration came from there. So we thought if the devices were in those classrooms, then we can monitor the progress of students using those devices, then maybe we would make the next step. But that's where we saw this, every student going through the school day.
It still doesn't make sense because there are 4 core teachers on a team and they're all teaching at the same time. So whether they switch rooms or not, if all of the devices are in one room, the other 3 teachers can't be using them. But yet you have enough so that you're proposing buying enough so that there's one for every student. So that doesn't make sense. Either you would just have them all in the 4 core rooms and have a classroom set, and then everybody can use them all day long, but why would you wouldn't need 200 of them. You would only need, I guess you would. If everybody had one, then all the kids would be using them at the same time. But that doesn't make sense that if you're telling me they're not a language arts classroom, you're putting them in the language arts classroom, but they're not a language arts classroom. And then you're saying, and they're only in that room, but there are 4 core teachers on a team, and they're all teaching at the same time. They don't all teach in the same room, because they have the same schedule, because they're going to have team planning time. So,
That's absolutely correct. I think all we were saying is it wasn't going to be limited to language arts and reading. That when Diane did the study logistically, where are these classrooms, who was going to get them, when the data came in, you saw that, oh, well, two periods of that day for that particular classroom, they're social studies. 2 periods in another classroom could have been science, and that is really basically what we're saying. Because initially we were just talking about language arts.
but then you would only need half as many computers. Because you're saying you're just going to have them in the language arts and social studies, then you don't need them in the science and math rooms, and then you only need half as many computers. You don't need a computer, 200 computers in each school, that's one for every student. So what you're saying, it doesn't all fit together, it doesn't make sense.
So if we leave them all in one, if we leave them in the classroom, and each classroom is a language arts room, those same classrooms are used then for reading as well, for the most part. And then those same classrooms are also used, interspersed, for the other 2 core classes, for math and for social studies and for science, the other 3. So the kids are rotating through those classes all day long. So the devices are being used all day long, not just for reading or for language arts. I can show you a chart then, maybe it'll...
I understand that there might be different teachers in that room, and that when the say language arts teachers when they have their prep, then maybe the reading teacher comes in. But then you don't need 200 computers, because you're only going to put it in 1 room out of 4.
Out of the 4 core, was that what
Yeah.
you were saying?
Because there's the core, there's 4 core teachers in 6th grade, and they all teach at the same time. They all have the same, well, at least next year, they're all gonna have the same prep periods. They all have the same special period, and they all have the same, right, they have team planning time. So they're all basically teaching during the same periods. And all 6th graders have lunch together. Am I?
They are, but, yeah, Joan, Joan is raising her hand.
I think
Help me.
the way the 6th grades work, all of the 6th grade teachers, for the most part, with just a couple of exceptions, also teach language arts to their homeroom. So, for instance, Mrs. Albright, who teaches science at Central, teaches science to maybe 4 classes, and she has language arts that she teaches to her homeroom. So if she's the homeroom teacher, she would have the computers in there, but then they would be used by her science classes as well.
Okay, well then it's very misleading to say that they're only going to be in the language arts classroom, because basically that's every classroom then.
Yes.
So it's misleading to say they're being put in the language arts classroom. They're being put in every core teacher's classroom, and there's going to be 1 for every student.
There will be a set in each classroom on the 6th grade wing in all 3 schools.
Yeah, so you can't, to say that they're only going to be in language arts classroom is misleading.
Probably should have just said homeroom
A
teacher.
homeroom teacher,
Right, that's a very different,
It is.
a different model. Yeah,
Yes.
We were trying to concentrate on language arts as being one of the, when we did our survey, like we heard from the language arts teacher that they really need like the technology as much as anybody because they're doing all the writing, they're doing, you know, more of the assignments that really require having the computer.
I think that's a mistake also, just to say that we're going in, we're only, to say that we're gonna focus on language arts, you have to focus on all the areas. I mean, there's many, many applications in every subject area, and to say we're focusing on the language arts, I think is misguided.
I think if I can just add something there. The idea wasn't to limit it to just language
Right.
arts and reading, because there's other carts available. You know, the other teachers would be able, actually then they're freed up and there are more carts for other classes and the lab. So it wasn't, let's just use this for language arts. That was never the intention. The intention all along has been, how do we provide as much access as we could? So with the explanation of language arts, I see that that can be confusing. But that doesn't limit any other teacher from signing out the cards as they do now. This will eliminate the signing of the cards for those certain classrooms. That's what it does.
Well, you're saying that, but the core teachers will all have them, because the 4 core teachers, the people who teach science, I mean, there's an English class and language arts, I guess, in 6th grade, and then the social studies and the math. Those 4 core teachers then will have a classroom set, is what you're saying.
I don't see that across the board with all the data that we saw to say that 100%.
Joan is shaking her head yes. So.
Yeah.
It depends on the building.
It does.
A lot of the buildings have that model where the 6th grade teacher teaches language arts to her homeroom. Now, occasionally, they decided sometimes it depends on numbers on the team, that they only teach their core subject. But when I was supervising science and math in the middle school up until this year, that was the model that was primarily there, that they taught their homeroom language arts and then they taught their core subject. So it sounds like what they're trying to avoid is the kids carrying the computers from classroom to classroom by keeping them in that classroom.
Right, but then we should just say we're going to have a classroom set in all of the main 6th grade rooms, is basically what you're saying, because there are about 200 students in every 6th grade,
Yeah, I think what happened was we just kind of attacked it from the language arts part because every student has language arts, and we were looking at even moving forward from the 6th grade to the 7th grade to the 8th grade with a model such as this. So I think we got hung up on language arts. But when it comes down to it, yes, there will be a classroom set in each of the 6th grade classrooms in each of the 3 buildings. And South will have a few less than 200 just because their numbers are down a little bit for coming in for the 6th grade. So we're not going to put more computers in than we have students, to your point there.
What did you do?
I'm apparently not allowed to speak. Oh, I didn't bring all of them. When are you going to decide, you said that you're not going to order more computers than there are students, but are you going to have a few, I mean, the numbers change, right, as you get closer to the beginning of the school year?
Oh, yeah, we will have loaners as well, so we have to have a loaner pool as well. Like for the high school, I think it's between 5 and 7, we have a loaner pool, 5 and 7% additional because, you know, we do have to count for kids coming into the district and whatnot as well. But South, right now, their numbers are a little bit lower and they're a little bit smaller all the time. So we're going to make sure that we don't pump, 200 into there if they only need 160 is what I'm trying to say. I'm not doing a very good job communicating this evening and I apologize for that.
Anybody else has questions? You did? Come on up. Come on down.
I I apologize, I was over at the IU, so I'm late, so I missed a lot of the presentation. but I just want to make sure this was covered. I saw that you talked about professional development. So are you talking about implementing this program in September?
Yes.
And professional development comes after we put the computers in place?
Can I do this?
So, this is the way it's happened, for example, last year with the elementary. When the elementary teachers received their computers, so we're talking about the professional development for the teacher. So that will come in August when the devices are here for us, and our tech integrators will provide professional development on the device itself.
I'm sorry, but I'm talking about, I mean, that's one of the problems we had when we rushed this program through after the pilot into the high school. The teachers weren't really ready, a lot of teachers were not ready to use this technology and this powerful tool to deliver curriculum. And I just want to make sure that we're not going to go down that road again.
And that's really interesting, because now we're in an opposite position. So what we've been doing with through tech integration is providing a good deal of professional development on all these new apps that they can use and programs they can use, and the frustration is they don't have the devices, the teachers don't have them.
Middle school.
Right, so it's actually an opposite effect that you're seeing for
Okay.
this particular model. So the professional development is obviously twofold. So first of all, most people know how to use a device, but we'll go in and show them all the ins and outs of the device, and we'll set up that plan. Then we will also work with the students themselves to help make sure that they, the device is down here, so maybe you can take a look at
That's
that.
okay, yeah, pass it down, please, yeah. And, yeah, that's a great idea.
So they'll know how to use the device, but in terms of what they can do with the device, I would say most teachers, I mean, we've been providing a good deal of professional development over the last couple of years, and I think that's where the frustration in middle school has been. It's like, you keep providing us this, these wonderful opportunities for students, but we don't have that access to the degree that we think that would most benefit students, and that's what this is really about.
Okay, I feel better, thank you.
I have a question. You were saying that when they come from elementary school, they have all these great iPads. Is there one iPad for every student? And so,
Go ahead.
so I'm just wondering so they're not used to having a computer. They're not used to having a computer or a device to use for the whole school day, the students.
No, the access for elementary, mostly primary, are iPads, but iPads are across the board. Our principals have been very creative, they're maybe 5 in the classroom and such, and they have laptops. What we're saying is that over the past couple of years, our elementary students have had more access than our middle school students. So you will find that middle school students coming from, fifth grade students going to a middle school in Pennridge, if we don't do anything at all, would have less access coming from.
I guess the only thing, the other thing I would like to request is, or ask, is if there's been any outreach to other schools who've implemented sort of this computer for every student in the middle school, because I think middle school students are a little bit different than high school students and elementary school students, and I think they have different challenges, and I think we can run into a lot of problems with students having a computer at their desk all day long.
I agree with that assessment.
So,
Absolutely.
I would like to know, like, what we're doing to make sure that we can minimize the problems once we put a computer into everybody's hands.
I think that's a great, yes.
Yeah, I think I say this every single time we talk about technology. It's wonderful, but there's a point where it's too much as well. So, I don't want the teachers, yeah, it's great to introduce them to apps and all these things that they can use, but I don't want them to think, I have to use this because I've been trained on it and it's an expectation at the expense of doing something that might be better suited to, especially to a middle school child and the place where their brain is. Where Christine is. I just don't want it to be this ever-present screen in front of our students. That does not sit well with me, that we're on screens all the time. And then outside in the rest of the world, we're told, limit your screen time, but we seem to be putting the screens in front of our kids more and more, and that bothers me.
So, and they're great questions. This is the interesting thing too. I think we've learned a lot with one-to-one at the high school. So maybe some of those things, and I'm sure they did, the access at the high school was, okay, you have this computer, you need to be using this computer. I think we've learned a lot over the past few years and have educated our staff in, this is a tool, and when it is best, and maybe not even for all students, for teaching and learning, access that. Do you use it all the time for everything? Absolutely not. And there may be some students who won't use it as much as another student uses it. I think we've gone through growing pains through one-to-one at the high school, but it has taught us a good deal about that. And I know that these kinds of conversations happen with the building principals, with the supervisors. We have, through George Corus and what we've read, and we understand that this device has to be considered a tool, when it's appropriate, to improve teaching and learning, not just because it's sitting in front of you, right? And we have excellent technology integrators, we have excellent supervisors, and I think we've learned together over the past few years to map out professional development plans and provide that leadership and understanding on teachers, this is the device we're going to help you use to improve teaching and learning. I mean, really, we believe that with our heart and soul.
I have another question. I understand you're purchasing these, we're not leasing these. So what happens when they say, Mrs. Marr, what is it, what's the replacement cycle?
So at this point, I would like to see every 3 years, just because it is, on the same cycle as the middle schoolers. So to cycle them through for 3 years is what I'd like to see.
So then, of course, the next question is what happens when they max out at 3 years? What do you do with those devices?
That we'll have to determine if we can, if they're still usable, if we can push them down into the elementary schools. We might be able to interject them into the labs, like at that point in the elementary schools, the labs are getting older, so I mean, we would be able to use them somewhere. And we may get more than 3 years out of them. We just don't know yet with this device just how long we will get. But I'd like to see them replaced, so we make sure that we, keep them current.
So there is a plan in place? There's
Yes.
definitely a plan in place for when they age out, where they're going to go?
Correct, we'll push them down if they're still
If they're still
usable.
viable. I get it.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Are we purchasing any insurance for them, or?
No, there won't be insurance purchase for these, just because the price is $290 per device. So there's no insurance.
And so we'll just do, maintenance will be done within the district?
As much as we can, so they come with a 1-year warranty. I can look to see if we can purchase the additional warranty for another 2 years to keep them under warranty for the 3-year replacement cycle. There's not a lot to break on these, like these aren't, it's all integrated, it's all solid state, so there's not a lot to break, and without the students carrying them around, a lot of what we see at the high school is, the accidental, they're throwing it in their book bag, they're cracking the screen, they're, the corners crack off. So we're seeing a lot of that accidental, but that was one of the other reasons to keep it in the classroom, especially with these 6th graders, so that they're still using it just like they use their laptops currently in the 6th grade, only we're giving them more access.
Do we see anywhere where we would be saving money by having these devices, where they're going to be textbooks that we don't need to buy or something that we foresee in the future?
So that's a great question, because every time we start thinking about ebooks, we get pushback from middle school because they don't have the devices to use that. So yes, that is the intention. The intention is, if we have the devices and their teachers have the devices and the students are able to use them, then you can consider electronic books.
Although e-books are usually, they're almost as much money
They're
as
like-
regular books.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is one last question, I promise.
Nope.
The 1-year warranty, I promise. The 1-year warranty, do they provide a replacement, or do they just fix it?
If it can't, so usually the way any of their warranties work is if it can't fix it, they'll replace
They will
it.
replace
So
it.
yeah, we have sent ones back already where it's gone back 2-3 times and they can't fix it, so they'll replace it.
Okay, thank
just ask if people are willing to.
This is a public meeting.
Yes.
I'm not sure. I mean, I guess it seems, you know, actually, I'm not sure right at this moment, so I don't know. What is, Christine, what is the information, the other information that you're looking for?
Oh, I just wanted to know what, you know, what's been done. Well, my question was like, what's been done to say, like, how do we make this successful in the middle school? How is the middle school different than the high school and the elementary school? And to infuse all this technology, what do we know about middle school students and maybe what other school districts have gone through with middle school students, you know, and some challenges that might happen. And I guess, I mean, my other question as far as like voting on it, I'm wondering why, I mean, we say that the money's in the budget, so why was this already planned before we were told? I don't know, like, I just find that odd that we have like $200,000 in the budget for something that, like, what was that budgeted for?
So that was budgeted for replacement of some sort of technology in the middle schools, just because, again, we're just hearing that there's not enough technology in the middle schools for the students, there's not enough access. So that money was put aside for devices. And after we met with the committee, that's when, you know, we came up with this plan to present to you this evening.
So the devices being that we might just be replacing carts or something?
Correct. And that was the original, you know, is that the way we go?
That is what that was our original, we were thinking, okay, so we increased carts at the middle school. And you have a committee because you want to hear from people. And we had that committee and we were told pretty loud and clear that the carts really were not meeting the needs of the teachers and the students. And they really were passionate about, please don't give us any more carts. If you can get them into the classroom where they can have easy access, I don't need to worry about, can I have it on this day or this day or this day? And I can plan my lessons and I can get our students through these.
And
That is really what that meeting, that's what happened. Because really, we thought, oh, we'll just give you more carts. And, you know, we listened to them and made adjustments and went back and listened to them more. And Diane was terrific, you know, trying to find a device that wasn't going to cost $800, but be able to do what we thought middle school students should be able to do without going down the Chromebook road. Because a lot of middle schools are going one-to-one in Chromebooks is what we've seen. Their Chromebooks are everywhere in the middle school. And our middle school principals, when we even talked about anything in that realm was, they cannot be there yet. You know, that they spend the first, quarter of the year just kind of getting the students adjusted to middle school life and what does that mean? And, you know, we didn't want to impose any of that on them. And we, you know, so there was a lot of discussion that happened.
So what is the current budget for this in terms of dollars?
I think I have 174,000 for the devices.
You were saying that what you just cited was a replacement money for replacement. So you're not going to be, all these carts that you said that the other teachers will now be able to access more. You're not actually going to replace those, but did they need to be replaced? Do you know what, so if you're not going to be replacing anything, is there going to be a loss of some sort?
No, actually, there will not be a loss. So what the original plan was to infuse additional carts into the middle school, and keep using the carts that we have until we can't use them anymore, so to speak. So we're not losing any devices. These are in addition. So these are additional devices. These are not losing devices. So those carts that are in the middle schools now will remain in the middle schools now. It's just the intent that they'll be used more by the 7th and 8th grade teachers rather than the 6th grade teachers, because the 6th grade teachers will have a classroom set and they won't need to sign out the carts.
Mrs. Comm, can I ask if, and Mrs. Yardley, if anybody, is your concern more about the use of what we'll do with the devices with middle school as opposed to the device?
Oh, yeah, I mean, yes, that's simply, I mean, the tablet, whatever, it seems nice. You know, yeah, it's pretty, I've used it, it's easy to use. I just am always, you know, I don't want to be a broken record, but I am always concerned about our, you know, the focus on, or maybe the overuse of technology to a point. And I would like to hear, as Christine said, how they've thought about how middle school students are different from high school students and what the challenges are. If you, I mean, you said you had that information, or that you've read about it or something, and if you could share that, I think it would be nice.
What I do know is that through the county, the movement has been one-to-one with iPads and Chromebooks at the middle level. And, you know, we went one-to-one at the high school. And, you know, you're going to hear some positive things and not so positive things, and it's really, and I agree with everybody who's asked this question, it isn't the device. It is what you believe about the device, what you're going to do with devices. And we are fortunate enough to have learned valuable lessons. I know I'm repeating myself, but we have very highly talented, intelligent people who work here, tech integrators, supervisors, teachers, and we're working together to understand the value of the device. And none of us believe the device sits on the desk and you have to do everything on the device. But we are learning what will work better for some students, and adolescents are different, and you have to understand middle school. I mean, I was a middle school teacher. I get, you know, what an adolescent is like to teach and learn. I've been there. I mean, I certainly get it. And we know that. We know that it's different. We know that when we're speaking to a 9th grader, it's different than a 12th grader. We know that the demands of high school are different than the unique demands of a middle school student. And what we're trying to do is ensure that the opportunities for learning best, if a device is here, that they have it at a cost that we thought, you know, was cost effective. Did that kind of research, but really we're looking to meet the needs of adolescent students.
I'm answering or asking more questions and hearing more answers. I'm fine with it, so I'm fine moving it forward. And I think it's fun, actually, you know, to have a classroom set, and I think it gives teachers a lot more options, because even if you want to say do like a 10-minute activity, to sign out a card is a huge undertaking, and you'll just not do that activity. So it gives you a lot more flexibility in doing short activities and long activities, and giving you a variety and access to a lot more things.
Thank you. That is the voice of teachers. That is exactly what they've been saying. So thank you very much.
And I also think moving forward, we'll call it a classroom set. And yeah, and I appreciate that.
That'll be much clearer. I just didn't understand. And when Mrs. Close explained how the language arts teachers are, then I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. But then it's really just a classroom set. So thank you. Yeah, and I'm sorry for that confusion.
No, I'm sorry for the confusion, because it was like it does work, but Mrs. Colezza certainly was better at explaining it than I was, since she's more involved with it than I am.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Scheid, I think you have an update for us on 21st Century Learning Night.
Well, yes. Thank you, Mr. Krause, and we're very excited, and we really just wanted to say this publicly, that we will be having our 3rd annual 21st Century Learning Night, May 30th, from 6:30 to 8:30. We are inviting the whole community. We've reached out to the community. We are going to be having live Skype interactions in classrooms, and so many of our teachers and our students will be there that evening to really show, you know, the school board and the community what we're using those devices for, how we're learning and how we're teaching with those devices. And it's not just devices. There's going to be all kinds of STEM activities, and we just hope you all will join us that night. We're very excited about
It's
it.
already on my calendar.
Oh, okay, wonderful, thank you.
Is this being sent out to parents? Because has it been sent already?
No, we are calculating our date to make sure. It'll be probably sent next week, and then
Okay.
another reminder because the holiday comes and it's the day after we come back. They're posted in a number of community areas here. The businesses have been extremely generous and kind in letting us put these posters up, and yeah, it's been a great experience. So yes, we will send this out twice. And it's on the web, it's already on the district website.
That's where I saw it.
Yep.
He brought, my fifth grader brought home the flyer, but I guess it was because it was with the letter asking them to participate, so I don't know, everybody got it?
All elementary did receive it and asked to participate. But we asked all teachers to participate. And as we go through classrooms and we see something, sometimes it's really interesting, sometimes teachers don't think they're doing anything really special, and you're in their class and we're like, would you present that at 21st Century Learning Night? And they're like, huh. So you kind of have to let them know that this is something that I think people want to see. But we're excited about that, and if you have time, and we'd love for everybody to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Schein. So with that, I'll open it up to public comment one last time. Mrs. Furlong, please state your name and residence.
Sue Furlong, West Rock Hill Township. Question was asked as to whether or not this was budgeted, and the answer that was given was that there was $174,000 for equipment. If I added up the items that were presented for like the charging station, the teachers' units, all of a sudden it's 200 instead of a couple of carts. My total is $464,000, which is about $500,000. So was the $500,000 budgeted? In addition to that, I assume there'll be some staff setup time when the computers arrive in the summer. I know there is for the larger units. There's a cost of training your staff. There is also a cost to have your maintenance people go out and evaluate each building in terms of, are there electrical circuits going to be able to service these pieces of equipment? And if one of the buildings or part of the building is found to be deficient, there's also the cost of upgrading that particular building. None of those costs are included above and beyond the $464,000, but they're real costs. So anyway, I think you need to evaluate it in terms of total cost. I'm not saying I'm against it, it's just that you need to make sure you do include a true cost picture. And, again, I'm not against it, but I just think that you make sure that you do have the money allocated for this particular project. And if you're doing this project, where did the money come from and what has to be set aside? That wasn't discussed.
Thank you. Any other comments? Please step up to them.
Alexa?
I just want to say, I want to thank you for helping to move this forward. There is a great need at middle school. We've invested money in science probeware for all of the middle school science teachers. A few years ago, you might remember, I came with a program improvement proposal to put some science probeware into those classrooms. We purchased gizmos, we purchased some other simulation software for students to use in both science and math. And when I would go in and observe teachers, and they did get training for all of those things, they would say, these are terrific, but we don't have the reliability of devices to make these things useful. Many times they would plan to use them and then they'd have to sign out a lab or a cart well in advance. So we have a lot of materials that are in place that are not being used as productively as we would like them to be because of the lack of devices for students and the lack of reliability. And I can say for certain from seeing what happens at elementary school, and I'm sure what happens at the high school, that it really, we were doing a disservice to students to suddenly have them not have that availability of devices. Just alone in 6th grade science, they study a whole unit on the dynamic earth and plate tectonics. And when they have the devices, they can look real-time data for earthquakes that are happening right then and there. So it just makes it for a much richer learning environment. So I am very happy that you're going to move this forward, and I know that the teachers will be ecstatic.
Thank you. With that, we will close the Technology Committee meeting. Does anybody need a 5-minute